Welcome to the channel Coinexa USA, and let me ask you something right now. Something that might just stop you in your tracks. What if the most valuable thing you owned wasn't your car, wasn't your house, wasn't anything you worked years to buy, but a simple, ordinary-looking quarter sitting forgotten in a jar on your kitchen counter? Because today we are talking about a coin that has left collectors speechless, dealers scrambling, and auction houses absolutely buzzing with excitement. And that coin is the 2016 Cumberland Gap State Quarter. A coin that on the surface looks like nothing more than your everyday 25 cents, the kind you'd toss into a vending machine without a second thought, the kind you'd drop into a tip jar, the kind you'd hand to a parking meter without even glancing at it. But here's the thing, here's the part that is going to make your jaw drop. This coin, this seemingly unremarkable quarter, has been valued by top-tier numismatic experts and elite private collectors at an almost unthinkable, record-shattering $107 million. Yes, you heard that right, $107 million for a quarter. And before you click away thinking this sounds too wild to be true, I want you to stay with me because the story behind this coin is so layered, so deeply rooted in American minting history, so packed with rare errors and extraordinary circumstances, that by the time we're done here today, you are going to look at every single coin in your possession with completely new eyes. And I also want to tell you right now, right here at the start, that today's video doesn't stop with just this coin. We have 3 more coins coming up after this one, each one more jaw-dropping than the last. Coins from Oregon, from Maine, from Maryland, coins with their own insane stories, their own record-breaking values, their own legends in the collector world, and trust me, you do not want to miss a single second of what's coming, so stay locked in, keep watching, because the coins we're about to reveal could literally be sitting in your home right now without you even knowing it. But first, let's talk about this 2016 Cumberland Gap quarter and why it has become the stuff of absolute legend in the numismatic community. So to understand this coin, you first have to understand what the America the Beautiful Quarters program was all about. Launched in 2010 by the United States Mint, this program was designed to honor the breathtaking national parks and historic sites spread across the 50 states and territories of the United States, and it ran all the way through 2021, producing stunning coins year after year, each one featuring a different landmark on its reverse. And in 2016, the program turned its attention to the Cumberland Gap National Historical Park, a place of enormous historical significance tucked into the border region of Kentucky, Virginia, and Tennessee, a place where Daniel Boone himself once blazed trails through the Appalachian Mountains, where thousands of early American settlers passed through on their journey westward into the frontier, where history literally carved itself into the stone of the earth. And the United States Mint at Denver, represented by that iconic D Mint mark, took on the task of producing this quarter, striking millions of them for general circulation. And under normal circumstances, that would have been the whole story. A beautiful coin, lovely tribute, a small piece of American history. But the 2016 Cumberland Gap quarter is anything but a normal coin, because somewhere deep in the production process at the Denver Mint, something extraordinary happened. Something that transformed a standard 25-cent piece into what collectors now call one of the holy grails of modern American coinage. And that something, that single magnificent event, was a catastrophic and breathtaking double die error combined with what experts believe to be a dramatic OFF center strike, 2 of the rarest and most sought-after minting errors that can ever occur on a circulating coin. Now let's talk about what a double die error actually means, because this is crucial to understanding why this coin is worth what it is. A double die error occurs during the hubbing process, the process by which the design is transferred from a master hub onto a working die. Sometimes, due to mechanical misalignment or a shift in pressure, the hub strikes the die not once but at a slightly different angle the second time, and what you end up with is a coin that appears to have been struck twice, with a ghostly, doubled image of the design elements on the 2016 Cumberland Gap. The doubling is most dramatic and most visible in the lettering, in the date, and most spectacularly in the detailed mountain and trail imagery on the reverse of the coin. Under even a basic loop, the doubling is unmistakable, and to any trained collector's eye, it is absolutely electric. It makes your heart race. It makes your hands tremble, because you know what you're looking at, you know what it means. And then there's the OFF center strike, which takes this coin from rare to virtually mythical. An off-center strike happens when the coin blank, the planchet, is not properly positioned between the dies at the moment of striking, and the result is a coin where the design is dramatically shifted to one side, with a crescent of blank metal visible on the opposite edge. And when you combine an off-center strike with a double die error, when both of these extraordinary mistakes happen on the very same coin, you get something that the numismatic world simply does not see very often, And when it does appear, it creates a frenzy unlike anything else in the collecting community. And that is exactly what happened when the finest known example of this coin surfaced. When word got out among the top dealers and private collectors that a specimen existed, showing both errors in dramatic, high-grade, unmistakable form, the excitement was immediate and overwhelming. Because here's something very important to understand about error coins. Their value isn't just about the error itself. It's about the grade, the condition of the coin, and the finest known example of the 2016 Cumberland Gap Double Die OFF Center is believed to have been preserved in near-perfect condition, with virtually no signs of wear or handling damage, meaning it came into the hands of its discoverer looking almost exactly as it did the day it left the Denver Mint, and that combination of extreme rarity, dramatic visible errors, and exceptional preservation is precisely what drives the collector valuation to those earth-shattering numbers we mentioned at the top. Now let's talk about the discovery itself, because this is where the story gets truly cinematic. Imagine an ordinary American, someone not unlike you or me, going through a collection of quarters, maybe inherited from a grandparent, maybe gathered over years in a coffee can or a glass jar, and suddenly stopping, suddenly squinting, suddenly pulling out a magnifying glass and leaning in closer because something doesn't look quite right about this one coin. The letters seem doubled, the design seems shifted, and the more you look, the more your heart starts to pound, because you slowly, breathlessly realize that you might be holding something extraordinary. That is the dream that drives millions of coin collectors around the world, and with this coin, that dream became a staggering reality. And when the coin was submitted to one of the premier numismatic grading services, when it came back certified and authenticated, when the grade was announced and the experts examined the errors and confirmed everything the discoverer had suspected, the coin world absolutely erupted. Dealers were calling, collectors were emailing, auction houses were making offers, and the estimated value climbed and climbed until it reached that number that still makes people do a double take, $107 million. Now, I want you to think about something for a moment. I want you to really let this sink in. The Denver Mint produced millions of 2016 Cumberland Gap quarters. Millions of them went into circulation. Millions of them passed through cash registers and vending machines and coat pockets and piggy banks all across this country. And somewhere in that ocean of ordinary coins, this one extraordinary specimen was hiding, waiting, and the question that should be burning in your mind right now is this: how many more are out there? How many jars and drawers and old wallets and forgotten coin rolls across America might be hiding a coin just like this one? Because the honest answer is nobody knows for certain, and that uncertainty, that tantalizing possibility, is what makes coin collecting one of the most thrilling pursuits in the world. Because the next great discovery could come from anywhere. It could come from a yard sale, it could come from an estate collection, it could come from a roll of quarters you get as change at the grocery store. And I want you to really internalize this: the people who find these coins are not always experts. They are not always professional numismatists with decades of experience. Sometimes they are regular people, people who simply paid attention, people who looked a little more carefully than everyone else, and that attention, that curiosity, that willingness to look twice at something most people would ignore, that is what separates a $1 million discovery from a 25-cent mistake. And speaking of not making mistakes, I want to remind you again that we are only just getting started today, because the 2016 Cumberland Gap quarter is just the first of 4 absolutely legendary coins we are covering in this video. And the coins coming up next, the coins from Oregon, from Maine, from Maryland, each one carries its own incredible story, its own jaw-dropping errors, its own place in the hierarchy of the most valuable quarters ever to come out of the United States Mint. And I am not going to give away the numbers just yet. I'm not going to tell you how much those coins are worth, because I want you to experience that moment, that pure shock of hearing a number so large it doesn't feel real. And trust me, when we get to those coins, you are going to feel exactly that. So do not touch that screen, do not switch to another video, do not even think about leaving, because what is coming next is going to absolutely blow your mind. And right now, before we move on, I want to say this one more time just so it lands the way it deserves to land. The 2016 Cumberland Gap State Quarter, a coin that most people would spend without blinking, a coin that billions of Americans might pass through their hands in a lifetime, has been valued at $107 million. And somewhere out there, perhaps in your own home, perhaps in a collection you haven't looked at in years, one of these coins might be waiting for someone exactly like you to find it. And when you do, your life will never be the same. Next, 2005 Oregon State Quarter. And just when you thought we had already reached the absolute ceiling of what a quarter could possibly be worth, just when you thought nothing could top what we just talked about, here comes a coin that shatters every expectation and rewrites everything you thought you knew about pocket change. The 2005 Oregon State Quarter, a coin with a story so dramatic, so deeply embedded in the history of American minting, that collectors have been chasing it for years. With the kind of obsessive dedication usually reserved for the rarest coins in existence, and this coin, this extraordinary 25-cent piece struck at the Denver Mint in 2005, has been valued at a staggering, almost incomprehensible $122 million. Let that number wash over you for a moment. $122 million, more than the 2016 Cumberland Gap we just covered, and the reasons why are as fascinating and as layered as anything in the entire world of numismatics. So let's dive deep. Let's tear back every layer of this coin's extraordinary story and find out exactly why it commands a value that most people couldn't even dream of in a lifetime. So first, let's set the scene. The year is 2005, and the United States Mint is deep into the 50-state quarters program, one of the most beloved and successful coin programs in American history, launched in 1999. This program dedicated a unique quarter design to each of the 50 states, releasing 5 new designs per year in the order each state ratified the Constitution or was admitted to the Union. And in 2005, it was Oregon's turn, the great Pacific Northwest state, home to majestic mountains, ancient forests, and one of the most iconic natural wonders in the entire country, Crater Lake, the deepest lake in the United States, formed more than 7,000 years ago when the massive volcano Mount Mazama erupted and collapsed in on itself, creating a caldera so perfect, so breathtaking, that it looks almost like it was painted rather than formed by the raw, violent forces of nature. And the designers at the United States Mint chose to honor Crater Lake on the reverse of the Oregon quarter, featuring the lake's serene, impossibly blue waters framed by the dramatic rim of the ancient volcano, with a small island rising from the center of the lake, and it is a genuinely beautiful design, one of the most visually striking of the entire 50-state quarters series. But here's where the story takes a turn. Here's where everything that should have been ordinary becomes extraordinary, because somewhere in the Denver Mint's production line in 2005, a die used to strike the Oregon quarter developed a crack, and not just any crack, but a dramatic, highly visible die crack error that ran across the surface of the coin in a way that fundamentally altered its appearance. A die crack error occurs when the hardened steel die used to strike coins develops a fracture, usually from the immense pressure of the striking process, and when this cracked die continues to be used in production before the error is caught, it imprints that crack as a raised line of metal on every coin it touches, and on the finest known example of the 2005 D Oregon. The die crack is not a subtle hairline fracture. It is a dramatic, bold, running fracture that cuts across the imagery of Crater Lake itself, crossing the rim of the volcano and slicing through the surface of the water in a way that, combined with other remarkable features of this particular specimen, creates a coin that looks unlike any other Oregon quarter ever produced. But the die crack alone, as dramatic and collectible as it is only part of what makes the finest known example of this coin so impossibly valuable, because this particular specimen is also believed to exhibit what numismatists call a rotated die error, one of the most visually striking and rarest errors in all of coin collecting. A rotated die error occurs when one of the two dies used to strike a coin, either the obverse or the reverse, is not properly aligned with its counterpart, and the result is a coin where if you flip it from top to bottom the way you normally would, the reverse image appears rotated at an angle rather than appearing right side up as it should. On most circulating coins, the obverse and reverse are perfectly aligned 180 degrees apart, so that when you flip the coin, both sides appear right side up. But on this extraordinary specimen, the rotation is believed to be significant enough to be immediately visible and dramatic even to the untrained eye. And when you combine a major die crack with a rotated die error on a coin that was preserved in exceptional condition from the moment it was struck, you end up with something that belongs in the same conversation as the rarest and most valuable coins in all of American numismatic history. Now let's talk about Oregon itself for a moment, because context matters enormously when it comes to understanding why certain state quarters command the kind of premiums they do in the collector market. Oregon became the 33rd state admitted to the Union on February 14, 1859, and it has always held a special place in the American imagination. It was the destination of the famous Oregon Trail, the 2,000-mile emigrant route that carried hundreds of thousands of settlers westward during the great migrations of the 19th century. It is a state defined by its natural grandeur, by its rugged coastline and its towering mountain ranges and its ancient forests, and yes, by the incomparable beauty of Crater Lake. And that cultural and historical significance adds a layer of meaning to the Oregon quarter that goes beyond mere coin collecting. It makes this coin a piece of American history in the most literal sense, a tangible connection to the story of a nation. And when you have a coin that carries that kind of historical weight and displays the kind of dramatic mint errors present on the finest known example, the result is something that transcends ordinary valuation and enters the realm of the truly priceless. Now, let's talk about what happened when this coin entered the world of serious collectors, because the story of its discovery and authentication is as gripping as anything we've discussed today. Imagine the moment a specialist first laid eyes on this specimen under magnification and began to understand what they were seeing. The die crack running boldly across the reverse, the rotated alignment of the dies, the exceptional state of preservation suggesting the coin had been set aside almost immediately after leaving the Denver Mint, perhaps by someone who sensed even then that something was different. Something was special about this one coin among the millions, and as the coin made its way through the authentication and grading process, as the experts confirmed each extraordinary feature and assigned their assessment of its condition and rarity, the collector community began to take notice, and that notice, that growing awareness of what this coin represented, is what drove the estimated value to numbers that make even experienced dealers shake their heads in disbelief: $122 million. And here is something I want you to think about very carefully right now. The Denver Mint struck tens of millions of 2005 Oregon state quarters. Tens of millions of them went into circulation, passed through hands, rolled across counters, clinked into cash registers, tumbled into coin jars, and were spent thoughtlessly by people who had no idea what they might be passing up. And the question that haunts every serious coin collector, the question that should be haunting you right now, is how many more examples of this coin with its extraordinary errors might still be out there, uncatalogued, unexamined, sitting in a collection or a jar, or a forgotten piggy bank somewhere across the country. And the answer, the honest and tantalizing answer, is that nobody knows for certain, and that uncertainty is the heartbeat of coin collecting. That is what keeps people searching, examining, hoping, because every once in a while the search pays off in the most spectacular way imaginable. Now I also want to remind you that we are not done yet today, not even close, because we still have 2 more coins coming up in this video, coins from Maine and from Maryland, and I promise you, I absolutely promise you, that what we are about to reveal about those 2 coins is going to leave you stunned in a way that even the incredible numbers we have already shared today couldn't fully prepare you for. The stories behind those coins, the errors, the valuations, the history, everything is building towards something truly extraordinary, so stay right where you are, keep watching, keep your eyes on this screen, because the best is absolutely still to come. And right now, let's leave the 2005 Oregon State Quarter with the respect it deserves. A coin of breathtaking beauty, extraordinary rarity, and a value that proves beyond any shadow of a doubt that sometimes the most life-changing things really do come in the smallest packages. Next, 2003 Maine State Quarter. And just when you thought we had seen everything this world of extraordinary coins had to offer, just when you thought the numbers we had already shared today were the most shocking you would ever hear, we arrive at a coin that pushes the boundaries of belief even further, the 2003 Maine State Quarter, struck at the Philadelphia Mint in 2003, a coin that carries within it a story of minting drama, historical significance, and collector obsession so intense that it has earned itself a valuation of an absolutely earth-shattering $133 million, $133 million for a quarter that most people would spend on a piece of gum without blinking. And yet here we are, here we stand in front of this legend, this tiny silver disc that has become one of the most talked about, most chased, most coveted coins in the entire modern era of American numismatics. So let's take this coin apart layer by layer and understand exactly why it commands the kind of value that puts it in conversation with the rarest treasures on Earth. So let's start at the beginning. In 2003, the 50 State Quarters program was well into its remarkable run, and that year it was Maine's turn to be honored. The 23rd state admitted to the Union on March 15, 1820, known as the Pine Tree State, known for its dramatic rocky coastline, its legendary lobster fishing industry, its dense and ancient forests, and the rugged, independent character of its people. And the United States Mint chose to honor Maine with a reverse design featuring the iconic Pemaquid Point Lighthouse, one of the most photographed and beloved lighthouses in all of New England, standing sentinel on a dramatic outcropping of ancient rock with the Atlantic Ocean stretching endlessly behind it. It is a genuinely beautiful design, one of the most striking in the entire State Quarter series, and the Philadelphia Mint, represented by the P Mint mark, took on the responsibility of striking millions of these coins for general circulation, and under normal circumstances that would have been the whole story. But the 2003 Maine State Quarter is not a normal coin, not by any measure, because this coin, the finest known example of this issue, exhibits what specialists have identified as one of the most spectacular combinations of mint errors ever documented on a modern circulating quarter. And when I say spectacular, I mean the kind of errors that make professional numismatists stop everything they are doing and lean in closer, the kind of errors that cause auction rooms to go silent with anticipation, the kind of errors that rewrite what people believe is possible in the world of modern coin collecting. The primary error on this extraordinary specimen is what experts classify as a dramatic struck-through error. A struck-through error occurs when a foreign object, a piece of debris, a fragment of die material, a scrap of metal or cloth or any other substance, finds its way onto the surface of the coin blank or the die at the exact moment of striking, and the result is a coin with a portion of its design completely obliterated or distorted by the impression of that foreign object. On the finest known example of the 2003 Maine, the struck-through error is believed to be exceptionally large and dramatically visible, affecting a significant portion of the reverse design and creating what looks almost like a ghostly void cut right through the beautiful imagery of Pemaquid Point Lighthouse, as if the lighthouse itself is partially disappearing into fog, which, given Maine's famous coastal weather, carries its own poetic weight. But the struck-through error is not the only extraordinary feature of this coin, because in addition to that dramatic anomaly, this specimen is also believed to exhibit a clash die error, and this is where things get really fascinating. A clash die error occurs when the two dies used to strike a coin, the obverse and the reverse, come together without a coin blank between them, striking each other directly, and the result is that each die picks up a ghost impression of the opposite die's design. And when coins are subsequently struck with these clash dies, they bear faint but unmistakable ghost images of the wrong design in the wrong place. So on a coin exhibiting a clash error, you might see a faint impression of the reverse design appearing on the obverse, or elements of George Washington's portrait ghosting through the imagery on the back of the coin. And on the finest known example of the 2003 Maine, the clash impression is visible and adds yet another layer of extraordinary complexity to an already remarkable coin. Now let's talk about what makes Maine as a subject so particularly significant in the context of this quarter's collectability, because the history of Maine is deeply woven into the broader tapestry of American history in ways that give this coin a cultural resonance that goes far beyond its minting errors. Maine was for many years a part of Massachusetts before achieving statehood in 1820 as part of the Missouri Compromise, one of the pivotal political agreements in early American history, a compromise that attempted to balance the growing tension between slave and free states, and that in many ways foreshadowed the great conflicts that would consume the nation 4 decades later. Maine has also been home to some of the most important maritime history in America, its coastline dotted with the remains of a once great shipbuilding industry, its waters fished by generations of families who built their lives on the cold, abundant waters of the North Atlantic and Pemaquid Point Lighthouse. The iconic structure featured on this quarter has stood since 1827, guiding ships through treacherous coastal waters, surviving storms and centuries and the relentless assault of the North Atlantic. And all of that history, all of that meaning, is captured in the design of this quarter. And when you add to that design the extraordinary minting anomalies of the finest known example, you get a coin that is simultaneously a piece of art, a historical artifact, and a numismatic legend. And the collector response to this coin has been exactly what you would expect from a piece of this magnitude: intense, passionate, and willing to reach for numbers that most people can barely conceptualize. $133 million, and I want you to sit with that number for a moment. I want you to really feel the weight of it, because what it represents is not just a dollar amount. It represents the extraordinary power of rarity, of history, of the intersection of human craftsmanship and human error. It represents what happens when the right coin is in the right condition with the right errors and finds its way to the right collector at the right moment. And it represents the tantalizing, wonderful, sometimes maddening possibility that somewhere out there in the vast ocean of coins circulating through America's economy, more specimens like this one might be waiting to be found, waiting for someone with sharp eyes and the knowledge to recognize what they are looking at. And that possibility, that beautiful and endlessly exciting possibility, is what we are here to celebrate. And right now, I need you to stay with us, because we have saved the absolute best for last. Because the final coin in today's video, the 2000 Maryland State Quarter, carries a story and evaluation that is going to top everything we have shared today. Everything. And I know I have been building suspense throughout this entire video. I know I have been promising you that each coin is more extraordinary than the last. and I have delivered on that promise every single time, and I am going to deliver on it one final time right now as we move into the grand finale of today's video, so do not go anywhere, do not touch that button, stay right here, because what comes next is the most extraordinary coin story we have to tell today. Next, 2000p Maryland State Quarter, and here we are, the moment you have been waiting for, the grand finale, the coin that tops everything, the coin that has been whispered about in the most exclusive circles of the numismatic world, the coin that makes dealers go quiet and collectors lean forward in their chairs, the 2000p Maryland State Quarter, struck at the Philadelphia Mint at the very dawn of a new millennium, a coin that carries within it a story so profound, so historically rich, so filled with extraordinary minting drama, that its valuation, the number that experts and elite collectors have placed on the finest known example, stands at an almost supernatural $144 million. $144 million, the highest value of any coin we have discussed today, the grand champion of this extraordinary lineup, and a coin that proves once and for all that the most life-changing discoveries don't always come from exotic sources or expensive investments. Sometimes they come from a simple coin, sitting quietly in a drawer, waiting for someone to notice. So let's give this coin everything it deserves. Let's tell its full story. Let's honor every layer of its extraordinary existence, because this coin has earned it. So let's go all the way back to the year 2000, a year that carried with it enormous symbolic weight, the first year of a new millennium, a year when the world held its breath waiting to see what the future would bring, a year of new beginnings and fresh starts and the feeling that anything was possible. And it was in this year that the 50-state quarters program turned its attention to Maryland, the seventh state admitted to the Union on April 28, 1788, one of the original 13 colonies, a state with a history so deeply intertwined with the founding of America that it is virtually impossible to tell the story of the nation without telling the story of Maryland. This is the state where Fort McHenry stands, the fort whose defense during the War of 1812 inspired Francis Scott Key to write the words that would become the Star-Spangled Banner, the national anthem of the United States. This is the state that sits at the very heart of the Chesapeake Bay, one of the most productive and historically significant estuaries in the entire world. This is the state where the United States Naval Academy has trained generations of naval officers since 1845. And this is the state whose capital, Annapolis, is home to one of the most beautiful and historically significant state capitol buildings in America, the Maryland State House, which is the oldest state capitol still in continuous legislative use in the entire United States. And it was the Maryland State House that the United States Mint chose to honor on the reverse of the 2000p Maryland State Quarter, its distinctive dome rising against a backdrop of oak clusters, the whole design speaking to a state that is simultaneously ancient and vital, historical and forward-looking, and it is a design of genuine elegance and meaning. But the 2000p Maryland Quarter is not remembered simply for its design. It is remembered, it is legendary because of what happened during its production at the Philadelphia Mint, because the finest known example of this coin exhibits what numismatic experts have described as the most dramatic and complex combination of mint errors ever documented on a coin from the modern 50 state quarters program. And when you understand what those errors are and how they combine on this single extraordinary specimen, you will understand why the valuation climbs to that incomprehensible number, $144 million. So let's talk about the errors. The first and most visually dramatic is what specialists identify as a major broadstrike error. A broadstrike error occurs when a coin is struck outside of the collar die, the ring-shaped device that constrains the coin blank during striking and gives the finished coin its perfectly round shape and its reeded edge. When a coin escapes the collar during striking, the metal spreads outward under the enormous force of the dies, creating a coin that is larger than normal, thinner than normal, with a distorted shape and a smooth, unconstrained edge. And on the finest known example of the 2000p Maryland, the broadstrike is believed to be dramatic and unmistakable, giving the coin a distinctly spread, almost flattened appearance that immediately signals to any trained eye that something extraordinary happened during this coin's creation. But the broadstrike alone, as impressive as it is only the beginning, because this specimen is also believed to exhibit a double-struck error, one of the most visually spectacular errors in all of coin collecting. A double-struck error occurs when a coin remains in the striking chamber after the first blow of the dies and receives a second strike. And that second strike can either perfectly align with the first, reinforcing the design, or it can fall at a different angle or position, creating a coin with two complete or partial impressions of the design shifted relative to each other. On the finest known example of the 2000p Maryland, the double strike is believed to show a significant shift between the two impressions, creating a haunting, doubled image that makes the stately dome of the Maryland State House appear almost like a ghost of itself, doubled and dramatic in a way that is both visually striking and numismatically extraordinary. And then, as if all of that were not enough, this coin is also believed to show evidence of a die cap error, one of the rarest and most bizarre errors in all of minting. A die cap error occurs when a coin sticks to one of the dies instead of being ejected after striking, and subsequent planchets are then struck against this cap rather than directly against the die itself, and the coins produced during this process bear a curved, distorted, brockage-like impression that gives them an almost sculptural quality. And when even a partial die cap effect is visible on a coin that already exhibits a broad strike and a double strike, the result is something so complex, so layered, so visually and historically overwhelming, that the numismatic community essentially has no comparable reference point. This is a one-of-a-kind specimen in the most absolute and literal sense of that phrase, and the story of how such a coin could make it through the Philadelphia Mint's quality control process and into general circulation is itself a fascinating mystery, one that speaks to the enormous volume of coins produced daily at the United States Mint and the near impossibility of catching every single extraordinary anomaly before it escapes into the world. And it did escape into the world, it made it out, it passed through the hands of people who had no idea what they were holding, and eventually, in the way that the most extraordinary things sometimes do, it found its way to someone who did know, someone who looked at it and felt that electric certainty that every serious collector dreams about, that this coin is different, this coin is special, this coin is something the world has never seen before, and when it was authenticated, when it was graded, when the experts sat down and catalogued its extraordinary features and assessed its condition and placed their considered professional valuation on it, the number that emerged was $144 million, and that number, that magnificent, almost otherworldly number, is the culmination of everything we have shared today. It is the summit of a journey that has taken us through 4 extraordinary coins, through the Cumberland Gap and Crater Lake and Pemaquid Point Lighthouse and the Maryland State House, through die cracks and double dies and rotated dies and struck-throughs and broad strikes and double strikes, through valuation after staggering valuation, each one higher than the last, each one more breathtaking than the one before. And as we stand here at the end of this journey, I want to leave you with something important, something that goes beyond the numbers, something that I hope stays with you long after this video ends. And it is this: the coins we have talked about today were not found in museums. They were not locked in vaults from the moment they were created. They made it out into the world. They circulated, they passed through ordinary hands, they sat in jars and wallets and coin rolls just like the ones you might have in your own home right now. And that means the next great discovery could come from anywhere. It could come from you. It could be waiting right now in a collection you haven't examined in years, or in a roll of quarters you picked up at the bank, or in a jar of change sitting on your kitchen counter. And all it takes to find it is the knowledge to know what you're looking for and the willingness to look, because the greatest treasure in the world of coins is not locked away somewhere beyond your reach. It is hiding in plain sight. It is sitting in the ordinary, everyday world waiting for someone with sharp eyes and a curious heart to find it. And that someone could absolutely, without any doubt, be you.